Good evening. Welcome to This Week in Turkey. Tonight we'll be speaking about the results of Turkey's historical referendum with Professor Murat Somer. Welcome.
Hello.
He is an associate professor at Koç University of Political Science and International Relations, and his academic focus is on ethnic, secular, and religious politics as well as democratization. We will be back shortly after we hear about the results of the referendum.
The historical constitutional referendum, which occupied Turkey's agenda for months, was held on Sunday. The yes vote won by about 51.4%, while no garnered 48.6% of the votes. Despite the narrow victory won by President Erdogan and the ruling AKP, the major urban centers, including the three largest cities, Istanbul, Ankara and Izmir, were lost to the no vote. One of the most striking findings is the fact that there is no significant difference between Erdogan's vote in the 2014 presidential election and the yes vote in Sunday's referendum. In many provinces across the entire country, the difference between Erdogan's vote in the 2014 presidential election and the yes vote in the referendum is less than 1%. In comparison with the 2014 presidential election, the highest fall of the support for Erdogan is in the Black Sea region provinces. On the other hand, whereas the ruling AKP and the nationalist MHP made an alliance for the constitutional referendum, they lost approximately 10 points in comparison with the November 1st general elections. Moreover, the provinces where the AKP-MHP alliance experienced a significant loss are the provinces where the MHP was strong in the November 1st general elections. Another striking result of the referendum is that the AKP gained fewer votes in the April 16th referendum where compared with the November 1st general elections in many provinces including Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir, Antalya and Bursa. Furthermore, the AKP-MHP bloc has lost approximately 10 points in the largest cities. In 13 of the 15 largest cities in Turkey, the AKP-MHP alliance has lost significant support.
So, Professor Somer, there seems to be a great geographical discrepancy between the yes and the no votes. So what do these results really mean? Or to put it differently, is there a message being conveyed here by the voters?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Before commenting on the geographical distribution of the votes, I think it would be useful to give some context for our viewers of what this election really meant for Turkey, and then maybe say what kind of a message Turkish voters might have given, or how can we interpret these results in terms of the message given by the voters to the Turkish politics. I think, first of all, I think these elections this referendum was conducted under very unequal conditions between the opposition and the ruling party. And in terms of the free and fair elections in Turkey, probably, if we set aside the times of military regime or maybe single-party rule during the 1920s and 1930s, this referendum has been the most unfree and unfair election process that took place in Turkish politics. Despite all the imperfections and flaws of Turkish democracy, that free and fair elections have been a feature, institutionalized feature of Turkish politics for a very long time. But in this referendum, recent elections have not been really free and fair, and this referendum has been the least free and the least unfair. Just to give some background, that the co-chairs of the second biggest party in the parliament are in jail. The state resources and state opportunities and bureaucracy have been extensively used by the ruling party, by the presidency and the prime minister and the ruling party in favor, to campaign in favor of a yes vote. The media was under a lot of pressure, and it was very difficult for the No campaign to really reach out to the voters and explain their point of view. And it was impossible really for the electorate really to ever see a fair competition between the 2 points of view, and then to see a discussion, for example, between the leaders of the opposition party and the ruling party, prime minister, and the leaders of the opposition parties in some kind of a debate where they could really compare their points of view. And I think we should add, to give the context, even though, of course, we have to respect the preferences of the Turkish voters, I think any serious political scientist and honest, serious political scientist would say that these changes are not simply the proposed changes in order to change a parliamentary system to a presidential system. They at least have very serious risks and flaws in terms of the checks and balances and the democratic nature of the kind of political system they are intended to create. So this is really a system that really creates very serious risks for democracy and are likely to turn Turkish political system to a more authoritarian political system. So, given this background, against this background, what does the outcome really mean? I think it really, against this background, I think it really depends on whether we focus on the empty or full half of the glass, right? So, on one hand, this really heavily unequal playing field in the referendum. And this winner-take-all majoritarian attitude also of the presidency seems to have paid off for the ruling party, Justice and Development Party. After all, the yes vote seems to have it. We don't have the official results yet, and there are some serious allegations of fraud. But if these results, we expect them to be really officially announced, the yes vote seems to have won by a small margin, which can be interpreted as really as an outcome that says that some authoritarian politics and unequal playing field in the referendum and a winner-take-all attitude that if we even just winning even by a small margin means everything. That seems to have paid off and won, and this is not really a good outcome or a sign for the future of democracy. On the other hand, if we focus on the full half of the glass, we will see that actually under very unequal and unfair circumstances, at least half of the Turkish electorate seems to have realized, seems to have chosen democracy, seems to have chosen actually a political system with checks and balances, and where the people can have a chance to control the government and have a say in the decisions of their government. And this no vote was really mobilized, not based on financial strength, financial support or state support, or even it was not really crucial that the main opposition party was campaigning for a no vote. It was mainly mobilized based on civil initiative and civil society and volunteers. And people who were in Turkish politics and Turkish society who had been known to be very unlikely to come together from different socioeconomic backgrounds and also from different lifestyles and ideological orientations, left and right, and religious and secular, and Kurdish and Turkish to some extent, they worked together. And why? There was an asymmetrical campaign because as far as the yes campaign was concerned, it really focused on basically not necessarily the substance of the changes in the political system, but people who voted for yes probably voted, one, for a strong leader, trust in a strong leader, charismatic leader, a strong state, and really broad-based abstract goals such as a good future and great Turkey. However, the yes vote campaign was more based on messages in favor of democracy, democratic messages such as accountability, a transparent state, a democratic state, participation, checks and balances. So these are, of course, good signs for two reasons. First, the fact that, the yes, people who voted yes, even though coming from different interests and different backgrounds, they campaigned for democratic values, democratic goals. On the other hand, people who voted no, I'm not sure whether they really chose authoritarianism either, because the no campaign was not necessarily based on these authoritarian features of the constitutional changes, but they actually really, what was really conveyed to the electorate were, as a political strategy, really something else, which was basically a strong state, good services, and a strong leader, which are related, which can be linked with authoritarianism, but they are not necessarily authoritarianism per se. So people who did not choose yes, did not choose no, I'm sorry, did not necessarily, we cannot say that they necessarily want an authoritarian state. They just trusted and they just believed in the message of the yes campaign that these changes will simply make Turkish state stronger.
So let's now narrow our focus a bit on the different profiles within the electorate that have emerged as a result of this referendum. And within the Turkish language media, some commentators have observed that we can now speak of three main divisions within the Turkish electorate, namely the conservatives, the secular, and the Kurds. First of all, would you agree with this kind of an analysis? And secondly, and if not, what do you think are the major fault lines within the Turkish voters and the society?
Sure. Yes and no, but more no. I also realize I forgot to answer your question about the geographical distribution as well, but this is related. It is well known, I mean, in Turkish politics, that there are several important divisions or cleavages in Turkish politics and society, and two of those are, one, ethnic, Kurdish and Turkish. The other one is harder to define. It is sometimes called center periphery, sometimes called secular religious, sometimes called mainstream, non-mainstream. But these have been quite vague and changing divide lines, fault lines. And it is well known. So this is sometimes called urban-rural as well. So we also know that there's an urban-rural division in Turkish politics as well. And more recently, in the Turkish elections, we also saw some kind of a geographical distribution between coastal areas, which mainly voted for the opposition, and this for the more pro-secular opposition, if you will, and then the mainland, which heavily voted for the ruling Justice and Development Party. Of course, we have to also take into account that some major centers, of course, the economic centers of Turkey are also in the coastal areas. But Istanbul, however, Istanbul being really the heart of Turkish economy and culture and academia, however, also chose Justice and Development Party. Now, these divisions, these three divisions, geographical, cultural, and then ethnic, we have, of course, also seen that these fault lines continue to be present. They are visible in this referendum outcome as well. But since they are not new, I would say that actually the opposite. Actually, in this election campaign, we have seen the weakening of these fault lines and these fault lines were less influential actually in this referendum. This is partly because of the fact that it was a referendum. It is yes versus vote. There are only two. We have several fault lines, but we have two really options. But this is not the only reason. If people who voted no, for example, and to some extent also yes, but mostly I think people who voted no really cross-cut these fault lines. So it is not possible, first of all, major urban centers, Ankara, Istanbul, which used to really, where the majority used to vote for the Justice and Development Party, they shifted to the no vote, basically to the opposition. In addition, this geographical distribution, I think you also showed the map, you will see that some major centers in inland Turkey, they also voted no. Also, Turkish as well as the main pro-Kurdish political party, People's Democratic Party, campaigned for no. So the main Turkish opposition party, Republican People's Party, as well as the pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party, they campaigned for no. The Turkish Nationalist Action Party, the leadership of that party campaigned for yes. In fact, the leader of the Nationalist Action Party was the very person who initiated this process by supporting this so-called presidential system. However, about more than 70% of the voters of the Nationalist Action Party, they went against the leader of their party, and they voted actually for no. Even though I cannot show you numbers at this point, different age groups, as far as age groups, I know some figures that different age groups also voted for no, as well as people from different socioeconomic backgrounds and income levels, and also not only secular people, but also a lot of people with a religious orientation who would self-define as religious, they also voted no. And also in the campaign, there were some civil society actors, religious, conservative civil society actors who actively campaigned for no. So in this sense, we see a relative cross-cutting of these fault lines in Turkish politics, which is actually good news, of course, because in any, for democracy, of course, there will be fault lines, but these fault lines should not be so deep that people on one or the other side of these dividing lines cannot cooperate for common goals. So we have seen that it has been possible in this referendum, which I think also encouraged a lot of people and emboldened a lot of people in terms of their ability to cooperate and work together.
My next question is, in fact, a very straightforward one. What's next for Turkish democracy? But when I ask this, I mean, is it dead, as argued by most foreign commentators, or can we still talk about a democratic leeway for the opposition, both opposition parties and the civil society, or just the society, to work within?
First of all, I would say that, because you mentioned also international media, international commentators, there is something that I think applies to all of us when we comment on different countries and different people. We say Turkey, for example, but what we mean is we talk about relations between Europe and Turkey, for example, between EU and Turkey. What we really mean is actually EU and Ankara, EU and the government, right? I mean, it is when as far as these relations are concerned, it of course depends on the policies of the Turkish government and the ruling party. But Turkey is not just the government. Turkey is also its civil society. It is also its academia, and it is its people. In that sense, what they will do matter as well. And when, as far as the United States and as far as the EU governments are concerned, when they shape their policies, on one hand, they have to take into account, of course, their relations with the decisions, with what the Ankara government does. And they may, we have all the signs that, of course, probably these results and probably, most likely, some upcoming likely decisions of the government will be interpreted by the Turkey's Western allies, governments, as a shift, is a transition to authoritarianism, and they may seriously undermine Turkey's relations with its Western allies, which have been very crucial for Turkey's for Turkey's democracy, foreign relations. But when these societies in the international community, media, civil society, as well as governments, in interpreting these results, I think they also have to take into account that, it is astonishing, actually, that, it is, as I said, in response to your first question, it is remarkable that actually under quite difficult circumstances, strenuous circumstances, half of Turkish electorate has stood up for democracy, for democratic values, European values, and they have actually shown that they want actually a democracy, a political system that has European standards, Western standards of democracy. So they should, I think it is very important to take this into account in interpreting the results as far as the outside world, international world is concerned. But as far as the intergovernmental relations are concerned, there are, of course, serious risks because there are certain decisions that may be taken by the Turkish government, or at least attempted, such as a capital punishment. That is an issue. If the president has argued that he will want to bring back capital punishment to Turkey, that could really seriously undermine, I think, endanger Turkey's relations with the European Union. Another issue is the referendum process itself. The main opposition party in Turkey has argued that, has said that it will take the issue to the European Court of Human Rights because the Electoral Commission is very likely to reject these complaints filed by the opposition party, in which case, since the Electoral Commission is the final decision maker as far as the electoral matters are concerned, it's a discussion whether the Constitutional Court would have any jurisdiction or not. Actually, normally, if you read the law, just the wording of the law says that clearly, Electoral Commission is there is no appeal process. But on the other hand, some legal experts have argued that since this really infringes upon fundamental rights, the ability to vote and choose the government is a fundamental right. The Constitutional Court could still actually discuss this issue. But either case, then this matter may go to the European Court of Human Rights. the referendum could be ruled illegitimate and undemocratic, which would also, of course, create problems for Turkey's relations with the world. But I think in all of these issues, I think it is important to, rather than maybe reaching some kind of a more final verdict on Turkish democracy, I think we have to remember that on one hand, this referendum outcome carries some serious risks for Turkish democracy and creates a possibility of really authoritarianism. At the same time, this kind of mass support and mass and active support for democratic values is, in fact, a very good news that needs to be encouraged and supported.
We'll pause here for a very short while. We have a video waiting in line. After we hear the video, we'll come back here. We'll be back here, and we'll actually continue talking about the foreign aspects of the result of this referendum. International election observers from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe reported on Monday that Turkey's constitutional referendum fell short of international standards and was contested on an uneven playing field.
The head of the OSCE's Limited Election Observation Mission, Tana de Zuleta, on a press conference on Monday said, "The referendum took place in a political environment in which fundamental freedoms essential to a genuinely democratic process were curtailed under the state of emergency, and the two sides did not have equal opportunities to make their case to the voters. We observed the misuse of state resources as well as the obstruction of no campaign events. The campaign rhetoric was tarnished by some senior officials, equating no supporters with terrorist sympathizers." Cesar Florin Preda, head of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe delegation, said, "The Turkish referendum was contested on an uneven playing field and fell short of international standards." He added that the late changes in counting procedures removed an important safeguard, criticizing the country's Supreme Board of Elections' decision to accept unstamped ballot papers. In general, the referendum did not live up to Council of Europe standards. The legal framework was inadequate for the holding of a genuinely democratic process, Preda also noted. Furthermore, Michael Georg Link, the director of the OSCE Democratic Institutions and Human Rights Office, stated that a recount may reinstate the trust to the electoral system, reminding that the OSCE reports are evaluated and considered as references to the European Union, Council of Europe and United Nations. However, the Turkish government authorities announced that the process is over and they would dismiss any OSCE statements and reports on the referendum. Responding to the OSCE's assessment, Turkey's foreign ministry said in a statement that the assessment that suggests that the referendum process fell short of international standards is unacceptable. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan also told observers they would achieve nothing by casting doubt over the referendum result and said, "Know your place first. We neither see, hear, nor know those politically motivated reports that you will draft. We will continue down our road. This country held the most democratic elections that have never been seen in any other country in the West," Erdogan added. After the Supreme Board of Elections rejected all appeals against the result of the vote on April 19th, Erdogan said again that this issue is over.
Professor Somer, my final question to you is related to well, it's not only about it, but it's related to the previous clip that we've just watched about the OSCE report. So this report did not present a very positive evaluation of the election process, and this is expected to have ramifications for Turkey's already tense relations with Europe in particular and with the West in general. So how do you think the results will affect Turkey's relations with the West, and what kind of an attitude do you think the West will establish following this referendum?
I mean, I read the report. I think it's a really fair report, and I think the problems that have been that are mentioned in the report are, I think, fairly established, and they do not. They very much coincide with the criticisms leveled by domestic civil society and political actors with respect to the fairness and freeness of the recent elections and the referendum. The real challenge, and you might add that of course the Turkish president has very fiercely criticized actually this report, which is not unexpected. But I think really the challenge is for both people in Turkey as well as outside of Turkey is how to interpret all of this. I think we have to realize that even though Turkey has reached a level where these problems of democracy reached a certain very advanced level, underneath these consequences, underneath these problems, if we go back also 4 or 5 years, how we came to this point, we will realize that actually that the problems that people are faced with in Turkey, or democracy is faced with in Turkey, are not very different, are quite international. We see, these are problems that are common and or very similar to each other in France, in Poland, Hungary, United States, Russia, Venezuela, or Thailand. So obviously these countries are all very different, but I think more and more people also realize, as I also in my research, that there are really common challenges or similar challenges, in all of these, and there are probably some reasons for this that we still need to understand. So what I'm trying to say here is that everything depends on how the opposition, people who voted no, civil society in Turkey, what they will do next. And the challenges, the difficulties of deciding what to do are very similar to, for example, what people in the United States nowadays, they are also they are really troubled by the polarization in American politics. And the divisions that were brought to light by the presidency, by the election to presidency of Donald Trump. Many people feel not knowing what to do about it. So we see similar fault lines, and this goes back to your earlier question, what are the fault lines in Turkey? Yes, there are some traditional fault lines that we all understand to some extent, but there is also something really new. Here in Turkey that people, both sides, first of all, quite curiously, right, and this will sound very familiar to our viewers, Turkish and non-Turkish, that in the polarization in Turkey and then in this polarized political spectrum before the referendum as well, even though the constitutional changes, as I said, really amount to an authoritarian regime, authoritarian presidential political system. There's no doubt about that. Both sides actually claimed to uphold democracy. So this authoritarian presidency was not defended by the Yes campaign in the name of authoritarianism. It was also defended in the name of democracy. So it was told, the people were told that this will actually advance Turkey's democracy. Of course, the people who voted, who campaigned for no, they also, of course, in their minds, they also upheld democracy. So like in many other countries, people who want to defend democracy, they are also really confused and to some extent troubled by not knowing what to do. Because it seems that actually whatever they do at the end, it backfires or it really ends up contributing to more troubles for Turkish democracy or authoritarianism. So what we see is, what I see is that, first of all, there is polarization. Polarization is the main, actually, source of this authoritarian trend. Second, people who try to defend democracy and improve existing democracy, they end up somehow trying to protect existing rules and procedures of democracy in Turkey. So on a global scale, I think it's wrong to say that, it is basically about liberal democracy, because if you look at, Thailand, Turkey, Venezuela, United States, these are very different countries. Turkish democracy has not been a liberal democracy. It has been a liberal democracy, illiberal democracy or partial democracy, but it was a democracy that had its own rules and procedures, right? Established institutions, rules and procedures. People who defend this democracy and want to improve democracy, they end up appealing to the courts, appealing to the legal system, appealing to the constitutional court and judiciary to get help to protect these rules and procedures. Whereas the other side, supporting the ruling party and the yes vote in the referendum, they actually want to bring new rules and institutions. They actually are opposed to the existing previous rules and procedures, which they call status quo and which they call actually undesirable and, in fact, elitist or rules that actually undermine the interests of the real people. So, when actually people who want to protect democracy, they seem to actually, by small or large margins, they seem to lose the electoral ballot. But they try to use other actions such as civil society action, protest, sound very familiar in many countries, right? Even the United States as well, or getting help from the constitution, and the judiciary to actually uphold these rules. But over time, at the end, this has been the experience in the Turkish case that these strategies seem to have, at the end, ultimately failed. So what do we learn from this? I think what the way out seems to be that the people who want an open society, people who want to protect democracy as we know it, they need to actually really, first of all, fight polarization. Second, really focus on building bridges with the other side, even though they feel that they don't really understand the other side. This also seems to be a common issue. But that seems to be the only way out for democracy. You have to actually really reach out to the other side and understand that actually the people on the other side are not always against democracy. They are not irrational. They are not actually unpatriotic. They actually have different interests and different understandings, and it is possible. Of course, not everybody on this other side of the fault line will be able to cooperate with the other side. But there will always be moderates, so-called moderates. There will always be some people who will be able to build bridges with across this fault line. So, and that is the only way out. And ultimately, this will also lead to, I think it will also pay dividends in the electoral field. So as far as Turkey is concerned, this no bloc, which is right now just a potential because it really so far has had only one common goal, which was to defeat actually this constitutional amendments. They should focus on finding out what can be their lowest common denominators, what can be their common goals. And it will also be crucial for the Turkish democracy. And here the European Union and the Turkey's Western allies can also be very helpful, is that there will be a number of legal changes that will be on the agenda until 2019, when there will be the presidential elections, because these constitutional amendments, they create a completely new political system in Turkey, which is really not based on the Turkey's traditional, does not build necessarily on the almost 200 years long experience of Turkey's democratic institutions or democratization. That now a lot of laws such as electoral law, political parties law, and many others, and then restructuring Turkish state, they will need to be remade. And these actually legal changes will determine whether, for example, in the elections in 2019, to what extent they will be free and fair, right? Whether people in the 2019 elections, will they be able to freely and fairly compete and inform the electorate? Will the state resources be used in favor of the incumbent government, or will they be more or less neutral? The media, what about the media? Will the media be really will have some have pluralism and give voice to both the opposition and the incumbent party, or will it be heavily favoring the ruling party? I think perhaps it is possible to say that whether some reasonable center truth, some minimum understanding of truth in the center of Turkish politics, will it be protected in the media? Or, as we see in many cases of this new authoritarianism in the world, what we see is actually there is so much noise, and that noise also seems to heavily favor one view, and then even though you hear the other views, it gets lost within all this. This is crowded out. It is actually crowded out by a very this disproportionate force, if you will. In favor of this one voice, which is usually supported by the government or by the state or by one ruling party. So these legal changes until 2019 will be crucial because they will, as I said, determine whether we will have a free and fair electoral field then. So the no bloc, I think, should really focus on this goal right now, and also be encouraged rather than discouraged by the referendum outcome. And there are these fraud allegations, and
we're running kind of short on time, so if we could ask for your final sentences, both on the future of the no bloc, or it could be about the fraud allegations as well, but. Final sentences.
I mean, I think this was actually really my final point, that I think on one hand, I think it is very important, of course, not to just say that, well, if there was fraud in the referendum, what's happened has happened, let's forget about it. We cannot say this because, after all, we want to protect rule of law. So if you basically let this one go, and as we did actually in the previous ones in Turkey in recent years, then of course more serious violations will likely happen in the next election. So on one hand, we cannot forget what happened. Of course, it needs to be pursued. But on the other hand, it should not take away from the more important issues as far as people who want to protect open society and democracy in Turkey are concerned, which is really come together and build bridges with the other side.
Thank you very much, Professor Somer, for your comments and for joining us in the studio tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll continue with our next news video. Our friend Zeynep Ekmekci did an interview this week at Medyascope with Emma Sinclair, who is a senior Turkey researcher at the Human Rights Watch. Sinclair underlined that the referendum campaign took place under unprecedented political repression.
I think, you know, the whole campaign took place in a context of unprecedented political repression. You know, that's not something we say lightly, but all the evidence shows that when you look at the whole context of the build-up to the campaigns themselves, we have to go back a few months, because, of course, this all takes place in the aftermath of the failed 15th of July military coup and the state of emergency. And under state of emergency, we've seen an incredible crackdown in Turkey, which has really taken it in a very different direction from, I think, what we would have imagined just a year ago. One of the most obvious symptoms has been the enormous assault on the media, which started, of course, well before. That's one theme I want to focus on. The other theme I want to look at is the crackdown on the judiciary and the enormous pressure on courts in Turkey, with the removal of so many judges alleged to have Gülenist affiliations. And also, you know, the direct interference from the government in court decisions that we've seen building and getting ever more, actually. The other aspect, the third aspect I would focus on, is the huge crackdown on the pro-Kurdish opposition, parliamentary opposition, HDP. The People's Democratic Party, HDP, and also, I think, slightly neglected, the whole assault on local government in the southeast of the country, with the removal of so many elected mayors throughout southeast municipalities. So, you know, in fact, an assault on the sister party of the HDP, the Democratic Regions Party.
The debate over the controversial practices of the Supreme Board of Elections continues to divide the electorate after Sunday's constitutional referendum. Following the divisive decision, the opposition parties have filed legal objections to the board.
The April 16 constitutional referendum has been completed. However, the debate over the controversial practices of the Supreme Election Board still continues to rumble. Following the Supreme Election Board's decision to count unsealed ballots as valid, the main opposition, Republican People's Party, and the People's Democratic Party both submitted legal objections to the board. On April 19, the Supreme Election Board rejected all objections to the results of the constitutional referendum. However, the debate still continues, with the opposition parties considering their roadmap for the upcoming period. Despite the results of the constitutional referendum, the Supreme Election Board's decision to accept unsealed ballots, unless it can be proved that they were brought from outside the voting room, triggered a debate over the results of the referendum. Previously, unsealed ballots had been considered as invalid following the constitutional changes in 2010. Citing the Constitution, the deputy leader of the Republican People's Party, Bülent Tezcan, told the journalists that the election board should immediately correct its mistake and at least take steps that would create an opinion that the elections are being held under judicial guarantee. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the leader of the Republican People's Party, added that the rule of the match cannot be changed while the match is being played. Despite the criticisms and objections, following its meeting on Wednesday afternoon, the Supreme Election Board announced that the appeals from the two parties in the parliament have been inspected and rejected. The decisions were taken with only one affirmative vote from its 11 members. Following the decision, despite Minister Bekir Bozdağ's claims that neither the Constitutional Court nor the European Court of Human Rights have any authority to make a decision on the referendum, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu stated that we will prepare a roadmap. If the Constitutional Court rejects our application, we will consider the changes as illegitimate. If necessary, we will also take the case to the European Court of Human Rights, adding that the party doesn't have any intention to abandon the parliament.
Now we'll have a look at what's on in Istanbul next week.
The International Chocolate Festival started yesterday and will be on in the historic Sirkeci train station in Istanbul until the 23rd of April. The festival will be attended by world-famous chefs and is organized by Tattoo Creative Studios the partners and media doktoru yapım. Various workshops, lectures and courses will be offered in cooperation with the gastronomy program of Bahçeşehir University, which is also a sponsor for the festival, and with Uslu Academy, a gastronomy academy located in Istanbul. Children are offered a range of activities and will be able to celebrate April 23rd, Turkey's national sovereignty and Children's Day during the festival. Fanzines Festival, which is an exposition of self-published magazines, started today and will take place until Sunday evening in Kadıköy Tasarım Atölyesi, Arka Oda and Tight Aggressive. The organization aims an annual meeting of small presses and independent publishers. Fanzinists' mission is to showcase the culture and accessibility of zine making through workshops, events, and an annual festival that welcomes artists and creators to share their stories, knowledge, and love of zines. My first feature film festival is going on until Sunday evening at Istanbul Modern, Salt Galata and the French Institute of Istanbul. The program focuses on the debut features filmed by current directors at the start of their careers. The screenings will be free of charge and they will be followed by meetings with director Claire Simon, actors Fabrice Desplechin and Gérard Hardy, as well as producer Eric Van Zulem.
That's all for this week. Thanks for watching and hope to see you again next Friday at 9 p.m. Bye.
Babamsın sen diyorsun. Eğer kurda anamsın, kardeşimsin diyorsun. Anladın mı? Öyleyse benim ümidim nerede?
Benim sen lan. Abi yapmayın. O benim kardeşim. Ne olur bir kere göreyim bari.
Oğlum var ya, senden şanslısı yok şu dünyada. Ne anan var, ne baban amına koyayım.
Bizi bulurlar mı? O zaman İstanbul bu tarafta. Neyden korkacağım ki?
Dua edelim, dua edelim.
Yuvarla eskiden mağazalarda görmeye alışık olduğumuz şeffaf bağış kumbaralarının yeni ekonomiye, yeni ödeme alışkanlıklarına uygun haldir. Küsuratlarınızı yuvarlayarak bir üniversite öğrencisinin eğitimini desteklemekten, kanserli bir çocuğun tedavisine destek olmaya, nesli tükenmekte olan hayvanların korunmasından, doğal afet zedelerine destek olmaya kadar birçok alanda küsuratlarınızla büyük değişimler yaratabilirsiniz.
Sorsana eğitimde fırsat eşitliği yaratmaya çalışan bir mobil öğrenme platformu aslında. Türkiye'nin bir ucundaki öğrenciyi işte belki İstanbul'daki, İzmir'deki, Ankara'daki o eğitime rahat ulaşan öğrencilerle buluşturmaya çalışıp onları birbirine yardımlaşmasını sağlayıp bir eşitlik yaratmaya çalışıyoruz.
Biz ustamdan olarak Devrek'teki bastonu, Ödemiş'teki iğne oyasını, Eskişehir'deki lüle taşını, Antep'teki yemeniği dünyaya taşımak istiyoruz. Binlerce yıldır bu topraklarda devam eden bizim kültürümüzün parçası olan bu zanaatları tasarım dokunuşuyla insanlara ulaştırmak istiyoruz. Ve bunu da hikayelerin gücünü kullanarak genç ve yaratıcı ekibimizle başarmak istiyoruz.
Türkiye'de çok fazla fikri olan ama uygulayamayan yaratıcı insan var. Bu tarz platformların buluşumun yaptığı gibi böyle biraz taşın altına elini koyarak sayılarını artırması gerekiyor.
Neticede kar amacı gütmeyen yapılar olduğu için çok da fazla sektörden destek alamıyor bu tip kurumlar.
Buluşumun bize sağladığı bu fon sayesinde bundan sonra da daha çok kişiye ulaşabileceğiz.
Arkanızda bu tip büyük bir platform olduğu zaman bazı kapılar çok daha hızlı açılabiliyor. Buluşumun network sayesinde daha fazla markaya yayılma şansımız oldu.
Sadece girişimci değil, sosyal girişimci. Aslında bunu bu coğrafyada yapmak çok zor oluyor. Ama bu zorluğu buluşum gibi platformlar sayesinde biz aşabiliyoruz. Onların varlığı bize ilk olarak şunu söylüyor: yalnız değilsiniz ve doğru yoldasınız.